Today, we will be covering Charles Koch, the dynasty builder. In the world of business titans, a few names command as much respect as Charles, the architect behind one of America's largest private companies. Charles Koch built an industrial colossus now generating 125 billion in annual revenue, and this is a private company. Koch Industries spans dozens of industries across 60 countries and employing over 120,000 people worldwide. His market based management philosophy emphasizes long term thinking over quarterly profits, decentralized decision making, and creating genuine customer value. For those studying business dynasties, Koch offers powerful lessons. He maintained private ownership, allowing him to think in decades, not quarters. He continuously reinvested profits, fueling expansion without external dependencies. He built a distinct corporate culture where principles outweigh personalities. Charles didn't just build wealth, he created a multi generational business empire by applying disciplined principles with unwavering focus. By listening to this episode, you'll discover the exact framework and mental models that powered Charles' extraordinary success. You'll learn how to implement long term thinking in your business, build organizational systems that scale, and make decisions that compound value over time rather than extracting it. When you're running a startup or managing an established company, you'll walk away with actionable strategies to reduce dependency on outside capital, create a values driven culture, and position your business for multi generational success. This isn't just a story about wealth, it's a masterclass in sustainable business building that you can apply immediately to your own venture. So let's start off with the first lesson. Okay, it's called virtuous cycles of mutual benefit. What does that mean? Well, at Koch Industries, Charles implemented the core principle that the company must create value for all stakeholders simultaneously. This wasn't just corporate rhetoric. It became embedded in the operational values. Koch stated explicitly, create virtuous cycles of mutual benefit by becoming a preferred partner of customers, employees, suppliers, communities, and other constituencies. When reinventing the company after challenges in 1990s, Koch consistently applied this principle, transforming Koch Industries into a 100 billion enterprise by 2014 because it focused on beneficial relationships rather than exploitative ones. So, how does this apply to you? Well, audit your business relationships and identify where transactions are one-sided rather than mutually beneficial. Create stakeholder map highlighting what each group truly values. Then redesign your offerings or interactions to deliver benefits to all parties simultaneously. For each new initiative, ask, does this create long-term value for customers, employees, business, or is this a short-term gain for one party? All right. The second principle business lesson is called principled rejection of bad profit. So in 1970s, when some senior employees were celebrating a particularly profitable crude oil deal because they believed that they had outsmarted customers, the Koch Industries president immediately confronted them. You boys are way out of line. Our customers are our friends. They are the ones that keep us in business. This story became part of Koch Industries' corporate mythology and established the fundamental difference between good profit and what Charles considers ill-gain profits. This principle helped build customer loyalty that supported Koch Industries' extraordinary growth. So, How does this apply to you? Well, establish a clear ethical boundaries for your business practices by defining what continues a bad profit in your industry. Create a decision-making framework where team members can evaluate opportunities, not just by profitability, but by asking, would we be proud to explain exactly how we earn this money to our customers? As Charles puts it, no one can decide which product and services a customer values better than the customer. Dedicating ourselves to satisfying what she values is showing respect for her. That is what generates good profit. Next lesson: experimental discovery process. So Charles embraces market economies as experimental discovery process, where failures provide essential signals about what doesn't work. At Koch Industries, this translated into a willingness to enter entirely new industries while abandoning others. By 2018, Koch had created massive profitable business units that hadn't even existed in 2000, including the building materials company Georgia Pacific and Koch Fertilizer, both generating billions in revenue annually. These successful ventures emerged from a process of experimentation where failures were viewed as valuable learning opportunities. So, how does this apply to you, and what is your takeaway from this? Implement a quarterly experimental discovery review where you evaluate evaluate both successes and failures. For each failed initiative, extract specific lessons and redirect resources accordingly. So as Koch writes, failures quickly and efficiently signal what doesn't work. Minimizing waste and experimenting scarce resources to what does work. Create a format for experiments with clear hypotheses, redefine resource limits and metrics for success, allowing your organization to learn efficiently from both success and failure. So it's very important for you to experiment the product, experiment the services. When I used to advertise, you would have to experiment a lot of things to find out which one works. And that's the same thing goes with an offer. That same thing goes with an industry. There's an experimentation discovery process. And if you are intentional and focused on reviewing and getting feedback of the successes and the failure, then you'll be able to navigate the course better. The next lesson from Charles is the first decision framework. When building Koch Industries, Charles prioritized understanding fundamental principles over adopting trendy management methods. He frequently quotes Emerson: "The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods ignoring principles is sure to have trouble." This principle-based approach led to development of market-based management, which is called MBM, Koch comprehensive business philosophy that has guided the company through dramatic growth and transformation across diverse industries. So, identify 5 to 7 fundamental principles that should guide your business decisions. Regardless of your industry or circumstance, create a decision matrix where these principles from one axis and specific options form the other. Before implementing any new business method or strategy, evaluate it against your foundational principles. This prevents chasing management fads and maintains consistency even as specific tactics evolve. So have your core fundamental principles for your organization, decision-making framework, and make sure you build your culture around that. Next one, intellectual honesty protocol. Koch made intellectual honesty a core value of Koch Industries. Be humble, intellectually honest, and deal with reality constructively. The commitment to facing reality meant Koch leaders couldn't hide problems or embellish successes during quarterly reviews. Charles himself would interrogate business leaders, looking for soft spots in their presentation, requiring division presidents to provide detailed recovery plans when units lost money. This culture of intellectual honesty allowed the company to address issues before they became crises. How does this apply to you? Well, practice where team members identify potential problems before launching initiatives. Create a safe environment. That's some key word. Create a safe environment for them to fail. Create a safe environment for them to accept feedback, criticism, and reward those honest assessments over optimistic projections. Develop a reality check meeting format where the team's sole purpose is to challenge assumptions. Okay, challenge assumptions. See why it's a bad idea. You call it mental sparring. Challenge the idea, stress test the idea, stress test the product, the service, or the go-to-market strategy, and identify the blind spots. That's the most important thing. You will, through that mental sparring, you will be able to identify the blind spots. And as Charles practices, hold yourself and others accountable to these standards of intellectual honesty. This is what builds great organizations. These patterns, you'll see it consistently over great organization. This is one of them, which is keep people accountable and have an environment for them to have a safe place for them to fail and experiment and test. All right, 6. Business strategy number 6, long-term transformation strategy. Unlike many business leaders focused on quarterly results, Charles consistently measures success on a scale of years, even decades. Long-term thinking, just like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. The long timeline perspective enabled Koch Industries to make investments that transformed the company repeatedly. For example, the acquisition of Georgia Pacific and the risky bet on Koch fertilizer in 2003 took years to fully develop, but eventually generated billions in annual profits. Koch had always worked on a very long timeline, allowing the company to pursue opportunities others might reject due to delayed payoffs. So, what you need to do is you need to think of decades view, okay? A strategic a document. This is basically, you need to create a strategic document, which is called decades view, alongside your annual plans, identifying transformational opportunities that require patient capital and extended development. Implement a long-term impact metric for evaluating major decisions, giving appropriate weight to benefits that may take years to materialize. Reserve at least 20% of your resource, time, capital, talent for initiatives with payoffs beyond the current fiscal year. There's an organization, what they do is they allocate 10% of resources like time, capital, talent, and so that particular division is just, their purpose is just to experiment. So for Charles, he has a long-term thinking. He likes to experiment. And these are the things that he used to build a $125 billion revenue company. This man's net worth is $67.5 billion. Okay, there's a lot of great things you can learn from him. All right, so number 7, knowledge-seeking culture. This one is very, very. Take note on this one. Charles embedded knowledge acquisition. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Charles embedded knowledge acquisition as a core value at Koch Industries. Seek and acquire the best knowledge from any and all sources that will enable you to innovate and improve results. Share your knowledge proactively. Provide and solicit challenge consistently and respectfully. This philosophy created a learning organization where knowledge flowed freely, enabling innovation across diverse business units. Koch Industries maintains classrooms in its headquarters where new recruits participate in day-long learning sessions to internalize this approach. So what you need to do is you need to institute a knowledge acquisition system where team members document insights from diverse sources, competitors, adjacent industries, academic research, customer feedback. Schedule regular cross-functional knowledge sharing sessions where insights are exchanged across the departmental boundaries. Create a challenge culture by establishing protocols for respectfully questioning establishing practices and assumptions, mirroring Koch's approach to continuous improvement through knowledge acquisition. You know who else does this? I covered Jensen Huang's playbook on how he built NVIDIA, his mental models, his business strategy, and he has this knowledge-seeking culture embedded in NVIDIA. So I highly suggest, if once you're finished here, you're interested in Jensen Huang, this Jensen Huang is one of the greatest CEOs that we have right now. He's transforming the AI industries, but it didn't start off like that. But I highly suggest that you, once you finish this, you listen to Jensen Huang, because there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of lessons, mental models that you can pick up from Jensen Huang also. So the 8th lesson from Charles is value creation compass. Throughout Koch Industries development, Charles maintained a singular focus on creating genuine value rather than extracting wealth. He designed the company's culture around questions on whether employees were truly creating value. When Koch took over his father's company in 1961, it was valued at $21 million. By consistently applying this value creation focus, he grew it to $100 billion by 2014, a return of 27 times greater than what an investor would have achieved in the S&P 500 during the same period. All right, so what do you need to do? Well, conduct a value audit of your products, services, honestly assessing where you're creating genuine value versus extracting value from your customers, stakeholders, from partners, and establish a value creation metrics and implement a regular review process asking if our customers fully understand our business model and practices, would they still consider our offerings valuable? Okay. Next, the last two, and then we're going to be going over his mental models. Perpetual transformation system. Koch Industries has thrived through continuous reinvention rather than protecting the status quo. Charles Koch built a company that was perpetually growing but perpetually transforming as well, entering new industries, abandoning the old, searching for the next opportunity. This adaptive approach allowed Koch Industries to evolve while maintaining its core principles. The company's massive growth came out not just from expanding existing businesses, but from fundamental transformations into entirely new areas. So how does this apply to you? Establish a formal transformational radar that systematically identifies emerging opportunities and threats that might require fundamental business and model changes. Dedicate resources to small experimental ventures that could potentially become a major new business line. Jensen, the funny thing is, I was just talking about Jensen Huang. This is what he did. Yeah, he had a system to see emerging opportunities and threats, and when he saw the emergence, an emerging business and industry of AI, he quickly pivoted into that industry. And look at his business now, where it's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Similarities. Wow. So next, last one, personal responsibility framework. So Charles instilled a culture of personal responsibility through Koch Industries. He considers personal responsibility essential to both individual development and business success. For individuals to develop and have a chance at happiness, they must be free to make their own choices and mistakes, rather than forced to accept choices made by others. This philosophy extends his business approach where accountability is emphasized at all levels. Koch created a system where divisional presidents were personally responsible for explaining performance and recovery plans, fostering ownership rather than excuse making. So You need, implement a responsibility practice where team members explicitly own outcomes rather than activities. Okay, replace status meetings, focus on effort, with accountability sessions focus on results. And one of the takeaways here is individuals, you need to help individuals. Okay, he has that mentorship program, but you also have to give them autonomy. You have to give people the ability to make their own choices and mistakes. And great talent is hard to recruit. It's hard to find. So most of people that have great talent don't need to be micromanaged. And if you give them the autonomy, allow great people to do great things and just reward them financially, that is how you create a great organization. Jim from Renaissance Technology has a similar playbook where he recruits people, gives them autonomy, allows them to make decisions and mistakes, and makes everybody a partner, which means giving people financial incentives. And Andrew Carnegie has a saying: financial motive must prevail. Financial motive must prevail. Okay. Remember that quote, because the financial motive must prevail is very important if you're looking for incentives. All right, so now we're going to be covering his Charles mental models, decision-making framework when it comes to hiring, when it comes to leadership style, when it comes to financial strategy, when it comes to partnership and networking. So this will be very, very valuable because you'll be able to understand how he thinks, how he approach each area, each category. So let's first start off with what is his core principles and values. Well, there's Koch's philosophy. Okay, Charles Koch's philosophy is principled entrepreneurship. He calls it PE. Underpins all decisions. PE requires creating value through voluntary exchange while adhering to integrity and social benefit. And during 2005, Georgia Pacific acquisition, Koch rejected cost-cutting via layoffs instead of empowering employees to innovate and tripling the company's value by 2019. So MBM guiding principle: profit is only good when it comes from improving people's lives. So he's all about adding value. He's about doing the right thing. He's about integrity. He's about protecting his reputation, and you can see it from his actions. So what is Charles' approach to hiring? Well, he hires for cultural fit with MBM principles. Okay. Koch Industry uses rigorous interviews testing alignment with core values. New hires undergo MBM training to internalize concepts like comparative advantages and decision rights. Hire people who thrive in meritocracy of ideas, not titles. What is his decision-making framework? Market-based management, MBM, a framework using economics, experimentation, and incentives. In 1970s, catalytic dewaxing investment was tested via small-scale experiments before scaling and avoiding massive upfront risk. Okay, experiment, don't predict. Let reality validate assumptions. Next, what is his mistakes, failures? Well, he learned from failures by systematically identifying gaps. So after the 1999 Purina Mills disaster, sold at 153 million loss, Koch mandated stricter due diligence process for acquisitions. And due diligence is going to save you a lot of money. Due diligence is going to save you a lot of time, so it's very important to have a good due diligence process. Industry context. seek comparative advantages in volatile markets. In the 2012 Molex acquisition, Koch targeted undervalued automotive connectors, dominating a niche. Never compete head on. Find where you are unmatched. Find where you have an unfair advantage. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, they call it unfair advantage. Leadership style. Well, decentralized empowerment with decision rights. At Flint Hills Resources, clarifying decision hierarchies boosted profits by 18% in 2006. Innovation tactics, dynamic discovery process, update strategies with real-time data. What is this approach with financial strategy? Long-term incentive alignment. Koch Chemical Engineers patent filings rose 40% after tying bonuses to legacy outcomes. Incentives drive behavior. Align them with lasting value. What is this approach when for partnership and networking? Acquire partners with undervalued synergies. Georgia Pacific Distribution Networks integrated with Koch's ecosystem, amplifying value by capabilities, not just revenue. So undervalued synergies. When you're going through the due diligence process, you'll be able to understand if there's going to be synergies, if there's going to be culture fit. There was an acquisition that I was going through. It was an HVAC company, and when I was going through the due diligence, it was not going to be a capability for the company that I was buying. It wasn't an undervalued synergy, so I had to turn that acquisition down. I didn't move ahead with buying that company. Scaling mechanics, decentralized autonomy within the MBM framework. So delegating IT control to business units save $200 million annually post 2014. Freedom requires a framework. Branding and positioning, differentiate via virtue-driven value creation. Customers vote with dollars. Listen to those signals. Okay, that is a very important quote. Customers vote with dollars. Listen to those signals. Do you want to know why or how Apple is a good product? Because people are voting with their dollars. Tesla. Why people keep buying Teslas? Because it's a good product. They're voting with their dollars. Customer acquisition retention. Customer signal prioritization. Analyze purchasing data, not surveys. So let behavior, not opinions, guide strategy. Let behavior, not opinions, guide strategy. What happens when there was a crisis management? Well, integrity first response. Integrity first response. So in 1999, Koch paid $35 million in environmental fines, but contested frivolous claims, preserving trust. Compromise virtue once and erode your trust forever. Protect your reputation. Protect your brand. This is what Warren Buffett talks about also. Protect your reputation. Don't compromise. All right. Integrity first. Adaptability. What is this approach? Well, pivot on signal, not sentiment. So Guardian Industries shifted to automotive glass during the 2008 crisis, avoiding bankruptcy. Survival requires surrendering sunk cost. This is a bias. Survival requires surrendering sunk cost. Resource allocation, MBM, 5 dimensions of value, profitability, innovation, divesting underperforming assets to find high potential ventures. So what he did was he allocated resources to where they compound. Allocate resources to where they compound. Cultural impact. Institutionalize MBM through training and incentives. Koch 10 guiding principles are embedded in the daily operations from hiring to R&D. Culture is what people do when no one is watching. I'm going to say that again. Culture is what people do when no one is watching. Culture is what people do when no one is watching. Long-term vision. Legacy over quarterly profits. Reinvesting 90% profits into Koch Industries since 1967. Sacrifice today's margin for tomorrow's marketplace. Man, that's deep. Sacrifice today's margins for tomorrow's marketplace. Ah, man. I'm gonna say that again. This is a very, very powerful. This is what happens if you focus the long-term vision. You sacrifice today's margin for tomorrow's marketplace. Oh man, that's deep. Ethical dilemmas. Well, Virtue Filter asks, would I defend this publicly? Rejecting lobbying for subsidies, even if its competitors benefited. Ethics are constraints that liberate. Personal habits and routines. He's very disciplined learner. Koch dedicated mornings to reading and strategic thinking. Compound knowledge daily. It's the only durable advantage. Like Charlie Munger, compound knowledge daily. Go to bed wiser. All right, compound knowledge daily. Technology adoption. Tools for dynamic discovery. Real-time data dashboard are Guardian informed the 2008 pivot. Automate hindsight to free up foresight. And the last one, legacy and exit strategy. Well, succession via principles, not personalities. Koch's son, Chase, trained in MBM, now leads Koch Disruptive Technologies. Build systems that outlive individuals. So, we just covered Charles Koch business strategies and mental models, his framework when it comes to decision making. I hope you found value in this particular podcast. If you did, I want you to share, like, subscribe, comment what you like, what you dislike, how I can improve this podcast, and stay tuned for my next podcast. Hit the bell if you haven't already.